Greetings, my friends. Today, the 23rd Sunday in Ordinary Time, September 4, 2022. And July and August have come to a close, and now we're into September. And the two glorious months of September and October. And they really are glorious months. As that fall, sometimes the weather is just so awesome. It just makes you stand with wonder and awe as you soak in the beauty of it all. Now today, it's an interesting kind of a talk I have for you. My homily today, and part of it comes from the reading, the second reading, which you just heard if you were at Mass here. If you weren't, here's what it is. It says, walk gently on the earth together until we touch something in others. Touch something in others that feels like the shards of our own pain. The shards of our own pain. A fluttering warmth of our own joy. Until we sew their wounds into our hearts and seal it with our own skin. So you can really see that first reading is saying, look, there's something going on here at a deep level between people. The potential is there anyway. And then, of course, when we go to the gospel today, the last line really catches you, because on that last line we have the author, of course he's quoting Jesus, whoever does not give up all their possessions cannot be my disciple. So my possessions, give up your possessions. Now when we first hear that, we're apt to think, well, that's my money or my house or my car or whatever. It's giving up things. Well, for some people it is, I guess. For others, it's much deeper than that. It's more to deal with giving up something within ourselves. Possessions like the ideas we have, the values we have, the philosophy of life that we're living with, our values and priorities. Or the flip side of that, which is the shadow side of it, the dark side of it. And that led me last week, as I was sitting in my prayer chair, quite an experience of the Spirit speaking to me. And I share that with you today for what it's worth. I know it spoke to me. It may not speak to you, and that's fine. And what spoke to me about was the dance. How do people dance together? And first of all, it brought back to me high school. I remember when I was a grade 9er, first high school dance, and I'm thinking, what will I ever do? I don't know how to dance. So my older sister, Carmel, she said, I'll teach how to dance. And so we started dancing. And I was a slow learner maybe, but anyway, she did teach me how to dance. But the big thing she did teach me was, if you're a male, you led. If you're female, you followed. That was the order of the day, like I say, 80 years ago, 80-some years ago, actually. And so I did that. I remember going to my first high school dance. And the band is there playing Up a Storm and beautiful music. And what is interesting now as I look back, the boys are all lined up against one wall, and the girls are all lined up against another wall across the way, and the two groups looking at each other. And it's kind of a stalemate, because you see the onus is on the boys to cross that walk, cross the hall, and ask the girl to dance with him. And certainly as a grade 9er, in particular, there's one little girl over there that was also a classmate, very pretty. I still remember her. I'm not going to tell you her name, but I really wanted to go across the hall, say, would you like to dance with me? But I could hardly screw up the courage to do it, because what if she says no? What if she says no? That'll probably put the damper on the whole evening. Now, but that was a dance. And sometimes you saw beautiful dancers, a couple on the floor. Over the years, I've seen people dance so beautifully and so gracefully. And I noticed sometimes the man was leading and sometimes the woman was leading. So it was that equality, that sense of oneness and unity that was going on. And I think the dance, and that's the key word for today's homily, is dance. How are we dancing, not just individually, but as a group? As a group. And who's in the lead and who isn't? Who's following and who is not? So it begs the big questions here. And giving up some possessions, it's an internal thing. It's an internal thing when I talk about the dance. It's a within our mind and heart and soul. And in order to kind of set the stage for this, I want to make reference to, and Matthew Fox talks about this, he talks about, first of all, Jacob's ladder. Now, Jacob's ladder was a ladder where they're going to build their way to heaven. Up, up, and away. Well, as the story goes, many a man has climbed Jacob's ladder, and when he got to the top rung, what he discovered was the ladder was against the wrong wall. Yes, he may have had great success, may have had a lot of money, power, popularity, what have you, but what he lost getting up there. The feminine was not strong within him. It was masculine energy only, and not a balance between masculine energy and feminine energy. And went out of balance. And that was particularly shown in his relationships because of the fact that his relationship was very competitive, very much driven towards success, if you will, to accomplishment. And some of the attitudes that a person needs in order to be very competitive, maybe even compulsive, in getting one's own way in order to climb the ladder. And you may remember a few years ago, our retired Pope Benedict talked about careerism in the church. A lot of bishops were climbing Jacob's ladder. They start out as a humble priest like myself, climb up, become Monsignor, climb up, become a bishop, climb higher, become a cardinal. Careers. And I remember we had a bishop posted here in Peterborough, and I made a bet with one of my fellow priests. I said, he won't last 5 years here. I could tell. Peterborough to him was the backwaters. Small diocese, no importance. His ego took an awful beating. And it wasn't long, and 2 years later, he was gone. He was gone to a very big diocese as bishop, a careerist. And Pope Benedict spoke of that in the church, careerism amongst the clergy. I always felt if I was going to make a career of it, I would skip all those, straight to being the Pope. When the church being a heck of a mess, if I had become the Pope. Anyway, no, seriously speaking, that whole culture we live in is a culture which fosters the masculine energy. I see that, for example, in our paper today, our newspaper. The junior Petes are starting their camp now, get ready for the season. And the words of the coach was very clearly, competition, driving, priorities, winning, winning, winning. That's what it's all about. And you better be clear about that and be prepared to give yourself entirely to it if you want to be part of this team. So our young boys are taught that so clearly, that masculine energy is the energy that has to do with climbing Jacob's ladder. And the ramifications of that, of control, domination, domineering, and the various ways masculine energy negatively affects relationship. It's Matthew Fox calls it via negativa. Negative energy as far as relationships are concerned, especially with women, and how men will basically, Matthew Fox says that we males are afraid of women. We're afraid of women. And so via negativa, the energy of via negativa lacks feminine energy, and because of being afraid of women, it often results in abuse, verbal, physical, if you will. And one of the big ones is silence, of course. Silence. And I've certainly seen that in the church a lot, where when it comes to religious outings, religious gatherings, there's always a large gathering of women, but sometimes very few men. And when the men do show up, for the most part, they're silent. Silent or overly vocal and domineering and controlling and unwilling to listen and hear the feminine side, feminine voice. So, yeah, you have to watch this. How are we as males? What is our energy, and how have we been shaped to climb Jacob's ladder? How are we shaped, and how does that affect us? Then we move into what we know as Sarah's dance circle. Now, Sarah and Abraham. Abraham was supposed to be 100 years old. Sarah was 90. And a strange man came along one day and said to Sarah, "When I come back next year, you're going to have a child." Now, keep in mind, back in those days, 2,000 years ago, for a married woman not to have a child, it was shame. It was shame. What's wrong with you? And so it was kind of a sense of being ostracized by the community if a woman didn't have a child. And sure enough, she became pregnant. And she gave birth to a child, a male child, and she called him Isaac. Now here's what's really important about that. When she called him Isaac, Isaac means the word laughter. In other words, she was saying, people are going to laugh at me at my age having a baby. People are going to laugh at me, and that's okay. I'm going to laugh myself. In other words, there's that sense of joy, wonder, awe, tenderness, compassion, those kind of feminine qualities in Sarah's dance. And that's part of the thing that Matthew Fox stresses so much, is that the feminine and the pleasure, having pleasure in life. I remember when I was a kid growing up, a teenager particularly, go to church on Sunday. I don't remember much about in those days they call them sermons, not homilies. And anyway, I remember the preacher would always talk about those people who want to always have pleasure. And what I read into it, they're really bad people. Those pleasure seekers. And of course, as a teenager, I recognized myself as a pleasure seeker. I enjoyed pleasure. I enjoyed joy. I enjoyed laughing. I was able to stand in wonder and awe at the beauty and the glories of nature. And so, for a long time, the word pleasure to me was a very negative thing. And it's only when I really came in touch with Sarah's circle and Sarah calling Isaac laughter that once more it freed me up to laugh and to seek pleasure, to enjoy life, to enjoy living as much as I can. But at the same time, Matthew Fox talks about the masculine energy and the feminine energy. And it's not meant to be either or. It's like the teenagers at a hall. All the boys line up on one side, the girls on another side, and never the terror shall mix. Well, no. masculine and feminine are to be developed within all of us. Masculine energy, we need that. We need it in women. Masculine energy, that because it gives a balance to the femininity. It gives that balance. And with men, the males, we need that same balance. Because our culture, even our religion in many ways, promotes masculinity. Jacob's ladder, competition, win at all costs, authority, power, control, war. So it's that balance again of dancing together to know when to be used to release masculine energy and when to release feminine energy. But the two of them come together and to know the balance is there, the balance. And I think that's what he talks about in that gospel reading today when he talks about giving up all your possessions. Well, it's sort of coming to terms with what are my possessions? As far as my energy field is concerned, what is it? If I'm a woman, then the feminine, wonder and awe and tenderness and kindness, nurturing, we all know them. We all know them so well. And but the thing is, it's also the need for masculine energy, the balance. So the two energies can balance together and dance together in life. And I think that's kind of what he's driving at. And on the other hand, with the male, it's the thing again, the balance, not just masculine energy, but feminine energy. And the feminine energy that we develop as males is meant to help us to stand in wonder and awe, to be able to laugh and sing and dance, to enjoy life, to stand in wonder and awe, and to have that balance between masculine and feminine energy. Masculine and feminine energy. And if there isn't that fine balance, then relationships are going to really suffer. I can remember as a therapist of a several married couples that came to me, and I remember the woman yelling at her husband, "For God's sakes, would you talk?" And the reason, and of course, by not talking, very subtly, it was violence against the woman. Silence is violence against the women. And I think that's a real issue in our world today. It's an issue in our world. It's an issue in our religion. One of the reasons perhaps that we have a hierarchy and only men are in it, because it's a place for masculine energy to display, to excel, to be in control. And living in a really male club, if you will, a hierarchy, don't have much to do with women. And if they do have much to do with women, it's as a boss. And a boss, of course, superior position. So that's something that we need to think about today when it says give up all your possessions if you're going to be my disciple. It's that whole sense of inner growth and transformation. So I talked about via positiva, predominate in our group. We see positive energy, the energy of the feminine, flourishing. And on the other hand, we see via negativa. And here you have the masculine energy, which is primarily silence. Men in church, except for the clergy who can't shut up, but the men in the church really speak up and really attend. They absent themselves. silence. And even in relationships, silence. And it's a way of being violent against women. Consciously or unconsciously, it's violence against women. And no wonder in my office a woman would shout at her husband, "For God's sake, speak. For God's sake, speak. By not speaking, you're hurting me." And I'm sure all of us have known the experience of having somebody giving us the silent treatment and how hurtful it is. So when there is that balance between feminine and masculine energy, then you have via creativa. Creativa. And that is creative energy. And we can see that here. I can see that in our Sunday group, that a lot of creative good stuff has happened, but there is resistance, a subtle underlying resistance. The energy of via negativa. Silence. Silence. It's out of balance. In most parishes, the energy is out of balance. It really is. And of course, the fourth step, via transformativa, transformation is inhibited. It's slowed down, or it can end up in conflict between us and them. And that's not what following of Jesus is supposed to be. As disciples of Jesus, it's that holistic and being able to dance, the dance of life. And so, yeah. So that's what I'm talking about today, is that giving up our possessions, part of it is giving up and part of it is growing. We have to give up the idea that we are a finished product. We are all in the process of becoming. The question is, what are we becoming? If it's becoming that's out of balance, then it's counterproductive. So what we are becoming has to have balance in it, where there's a balance between the feminine energy and the masculine energy. And when there is that balance on the individuals, there can be balance in the community, and the community will experience creativity on how it expresses itself, how it worships, how it interacts together, and it will be transformative. We'll grow as a community and become even greater than we are. So it has that sense of transformation and growth when there is a good balance between the two energies. God bless.